Om Shanti, a greeting of peace to all my sisters and my brothers. We've come together today to honor the International Day of Peace arranged by the United Nations. And at such a time, we look around the world and we wonder, is it ever going to be possible to have a world of peace? Because it feels as if we've escalated situations in all the different corners of the world with a lot of arrogance and a lot of violence. But that's not what the world is about. It's possible to have a world of peace when we ourselves come to the experience of the peace that lies within. And so the secret of having a world of peace is actually to be able to have peace within myself, to experience my own natural state of peace. And it seems strange to say that peace is natural, because at the moment we don't have even a moment's experience of peace. But yet just reflect on it for a moment. If there's an atmosphere of anger, if there's an atmosphere of conflict and violence, would you prefer to stay in that, or would you prefer to leave, exit as soon as possible? I'm sure that nobody wants to continue to be in an atmosphere where there's any trace of any violence whatsoever. What we would say is, I really want to get away from this. And if there's a garden of peace, a home where there is peace, hours can pass by and it'll go like a flash. And you'll say, have I been here 3 hours already? And this is because peace feels very natural. It's the natural state of being of the soul. And so what I want to do is to go deep inside myself and learn to cultivate the peace that lies within. It is there, but I haven't done this inner work. I haven't made this journey inside. We've gone to the moon and the stars, we're going to Mars, we've done all of those things, but we haven't taken the most important journey that civilization depends on. And that is the journey inwards, the journey within. And as I take the time to slow down the speed of my thoughts and create spaces between my thoughts, so that as I continue with my meditation, I increase the space between my thinking. And that space is the space in which there is peace. And I'll be able to feel it and experience it and share it through my vibrations with others around me. Peace in myself means peace with my loved ones, my family, those who are the nearest and the dearest to me. It means I carry this peace with myself wherever I go to work. Whether I'm working in a factory, whether I'm working in an office, or I'm working at an academic establishment, be it a nursery school, a secondary school, or a library, wherever it may be. But my inner peace will carry me through my relationship with family, my relationship with those at work, and my relationship with my neighbors and my friends. And so the circle that is influenced by my own state of peace begins to grow. Because everybody wants to have that experience of peace. And if they see me enjoying that experience, and of course, if I'm feeling peaceful, it's visible through my forehead, through my eyes, through my face, and through my words and my behavior. And if I'm not peaceful, all of these also give the other party a very strong indication that there's something not quite right, that I am not at peace. And if I can share peace in this way, firstly, with the people I have direct contact with, but each one of them then becomes an instrument to connect with maybe a dozen others, maybe more than that, who knows. And wherever it is they go, they carry that experience of peace. And even if it is initially just for a few moments or a few minutes, that's it. It can give an experience of peace, and the ripple of peace will spread around, even from a tiny minority to a large majority, and it'll reach the whole country. And from the country, it will reach the continent. From the continent, it will actually reach the world. It'll go everywhere. And so my responsibility to myself and my responsibility to the world is to be able to maintain my own inner peace and be an instrument of peace wherever it is I go. And I do this through my thoughts, first and foremost. My inner thoughts of peace are going to generate the capacity for my thoughts to reach others, because my thoughts are clean, my thoughts are pure, so there's nothing to hide. If there was something that I had to cover up, then yes, maybe I wouldn't be able to have such peace. But when there's truth and love and nothing to hide, then my thoughts of peace can be shared with all, and everybody can feel the impact of that. Not just my country, not just this continent, but even the whole wide world. So it's important that we understand this process, because sometimes we think, yes, I've got to send out vibrations of peace to the world, and fine, I can do that. But the other journey, a very practical journey, is one in which we are moving a step at a time in the right direction. And so long as we are moving in that direction, the peace in our hearts is going to be able to bring peace into the world. People always ask, but how can one make a difference? How come if I don't remain peaceful, will I not be able to share in the establishment of a world of peace? Well, first thing, if I want to be an instrument to establish peace in the world, I need to be peaceful. Something to understand. But also let me understand that if I haven't been able to be such an instrument as yet, no problem. I can have that determination and have a pure thought now, and I'll be able to do it. It'll happen. Each one of us is a very powerful instrument, and we very, very often forget this. But at a moment of need, whatever I have taken from the divine, I'll be able to share that. And maybe it's not even a question of sharing. In those final critical moments in which I, the soul, need to fly off, I need to be able to have done my duty of sharing peace with all. And so, let me see, where do I begin? I spoke about peace being my original religion. But in fact, a lot of the time, we don't even remember that we are the conscious living being sitting inside this temple. We think we're just this, the body. And in that awareness of the body, negativity is surely going to find a way to enter. Ego comes from the consciousness of I, lust and anger and greed and attachment. All of these things create a lot of distress inside. And so yes, peace is possible, but only when I've done a clean-up inside. When ego comes and I say and I think and I back it up with words and actions, I say, This is my country. You cannot enter. I can put up a barricade, but more than a barricade is the power of my thought that allows those energies to work which reach out and others come together to help in a way that you hadn't imagined. So peace brings cooperation with all, that's for sure. But what if there isn't peace? What's going on at that moment? If I go very deeply inside myself, then I find that there's a base of good values that belong to the soul. And we've never bothered to explore this. And so now, hopefully, there's a little bit more time. Some things have been lightened, some pieces have been made stronger in terms of the creation of peace. And so what I need to do is to really understand that there are layers and layers that cover up my own deep experiences of the goodness that I carry within myself. And the way to remove all of those things that come in the way is through the practice of awareness of the inner identity, the spiritual identity of the self, this being of light. Can I maintain that consciousness as I speak, as I hear, as I eat and move and walk, and do all the things that I need to do for myself and for others? This one practice is most essential in my spiritual journey and is the foundation to be able to experience peace within and peace without. If I am at peace with myself, within myself, then what will happen is that as I come into an exchange with another, I'll share peace. But what happens if there's conflict going on inside the self? It'll be a tension when I'm speaking, because people will be able to feel that my words are not aligned with the reality of what's going on inside of me. Let's see what sort of battle is going on inside. I think first and foremost is this battle of the identity of the physical taking over the identity of spirit. And so that first battle, who am I? It's a big, deep, strong battle that can last a long time. But equally, it's a battle that can finish very quickly. The more I practice stabilizing my awareness and my true identity, the easier it will be to let go of this, the consciousness of this. I'm still very much here. I'm still very active and doing all the things I need to do. But now I've chosen to let go of the consciousness of this and focus my identity here as that being of light. And now I'm communicating with that awareness. I'm doing things with that awareness. And the power of this is incredible. The power of this is such that whatever the negative forces that were attacking me before, now in the state of the real identity of the self, the anger, the greed, the attachments, all those things become very quiet. They haven't yet gone, they're still there, but I'm on the journey. And I've understood now what I have to do to be able to raise my power and be able to allow the other negative force to become a little bit calmer and a little bit quieter. I continue in this journey of going inwards. And there's another battle that comes. And this battle is again something that may go on for a while, because it's the battle of my feelings and my conscience. And this battle destroys my peace of mind. And if I want to claim back that original experience of the treasure of peace, I have to resolve this issue. And so on the one side, there are my feelings, my emotions that come up. On the other side, there is my conscience, my awareness, my intellect that is reminding me that if I explode, if I allow negative feelings to erupt, it's going to be very, very damaging. It's going to be damaging for me, damaging for others, and the atmosphere. If I hurt somebody physically, the wound will heal. But if I've spoken words of anger, it can be decades and decades before that hurt is settled and the pain of that is removed. And so I don't want to have decades in which I've caused suffering to another, in which my relationship with them is damaged. And so I have to talk to myself, and I have to understand that with God's love, with the power that I receive through meditation, I can allow those feelings to subside. I'm not suppressing them. I'm not repressing them, but I'm transforming them, transmuting them, so that instead of that reaction of anger, that explosion that would have come otherwise, now, very simple, just take a pause. You know how when we were little, we were taught, count 10 before you reply. And we don't even count up to 3, never mind 10. We don't even count to 1, 2, 3. If we were to even count up to 3, that reaction would become a little bit more subdued, a little bit calmer. And if I take a few more moments, I can begin to see things differently, and I don't need to explode with anger. Once I see things in a different way, I've been able to turn things around 180 degrees, not even just a little bit, 10 degrees, 20 degrees, but 180 degrees. If I can talk to myself in that pause of 3 count, pause of 6 count, maybe 6, try that. Maybe 10, try that, even better. But in that pause, I'm asking myself, can I see the situation from the other side of the fence? The person is here, I am here, and there's a fence, and the fence could very quickly become a wall. At least through a fence you can see each other. But if there's a wall, you can't even see each other, and you can't hear each other. And so at the moment it's still just a fence, and if I react, it'll become a wall. I don't want it to become a wall. I want to be able to allow that fence to finish so that there can be a proper exchange of one human being with another, of respect and dignity. And so let me put myself on their side of the fence and look at the situation from their side. They made a mistake. Yes, sure. And my explosion is another mistake. And 2 mistakes don't put things right. Do I think that by my explosion, things are going to get right, get sorted out? They're not. So I put myself on the other side of the fence and see, okay, this person was maybe a little bit tired that day. Maybe they had too much on their plate and they couldn't manage it all. Maybe they had a situation at home. There could be so many different things that are the cause of that mistake. Can I understand and be able to deal with it differently? And probably if I look at things from the other side of the fence, yes, I will be able to see things differently. And my anger will have become calm. And so it takes just a few seconds to be able to sort it out inside so that my conscience is the master, the ruler, and my feelings come back into line in the way that they should. Not that they are out of control and I'm not able to manage myself, but I bring them back under control with the power of the conscience. We use this word buddhi, and buddhi has two different functions. There's the mind, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, and then there's the buddhi. And the buddhi is actually the master, or should be the master, because the buddhi is my understanding, my capacity to learn, my capacity to understand and work with reason. You know, we all like to think that we're very reasonable human beings, that we are actually very sensible human beings. This is the prerogative of the human being, that you're able to understand and learn and hold wisdom. And that becomes also that another part of the buddhi, the intellect, is the work of the conscience. And so although we may say that we are very reasonable human beings, when I'm taken over by greed or I'm taken over by attachment or anger, how reasonable am I at that moment? Reason has flown out of the window. And so keeping the intellect as the master and bringing the feelings and the thoughts back into alignment with what my conscience and my understanding is telling me, I'll be able to finish this inner battle and stay on track. And the path of peace that I follow will be the destination that I arrive at. If I don't follow the path of peace, the destination of peace is never going to happen. And so let me follow that path by understanding this battle that goes on. And if I don't understand this battle, then of course it's my emotions that will erupt, it'll be my feelings that will erupt, because I haven't understood what's going on within. And after my explosion, I feel very bad about it. And I say, I wish I hadn't. I wish it didn't work out like that. But by then, it's not possible to change that track record of what has already occurred. Yes, I can learn for the future, but meanwhile, this track record has really got a stain on it because of my explosion. So the second battle to deal with, so that I'm able to move in the direction of peace, is this battle of my feelings and my conscience and understanding. Are there more battles? Yes, there's another very big one. And that is the imprints that I carry within myself, the patterns of behavior that I've developed over the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, maybe even longer. And every time I repeated that quality of action, the imprint became stronger and stronger. And if today I now understand that these habits that I have, these tendencies that I have, are stronger than me, they take over. When I understand this, I ask myself the question, well, how can I deal with this? And the way to deal with this, again, is through my connection with the divine. Because I need power. I need the will to be able to change a pattern of behavior. Do you have habits that you've tried to give up? Maybe you understand in theory, sleeping late at night is not good for my health, it's not good for my mind, because then when it's time to wake up, I don't feel fresh. I switch off the alarm, I turn around and go to sleep for 5 minutes more, and 30 minutes later I wake up. And I say, my God, I thought it was just going to be 5 minutes. So the struggle with the body, because I haven't given attention to what this body needs, but it's become a habit to stay up late. Just thinking about it isn't enough. Even just saying that there's benefit in this and loss in this, even that doesn't seem to work. But I need willpower within myself. I need power. And so the power that I get through meditation, Raj Yoga, yoga, union, communion, communication, and Raja, the sovereign, the supreme, the highest. So it means the yoga through which I become a self-sovereign. It also means the yoga that I have with the supreme, the highest of all. In this state of mastery, of becoming the master of the self, firstly, I experience that stage of detachment in watching all these different habits that I've acquired that are not very helpful for me at the moment. Maybe there was a time when it didn't really matter. It's okay. But now I'm feeling the value of time is very precious. The value of time is that the clock is ticking on, and I don't know how long this body is going to support me. And maybe not even that. Who knows when this pandemic will finish and things will become calm, if ever. Who knows when another pandemic will come? And surely there will be something else. If you look at the story of humanity, every time we've taken a jump in what we thought was progress, it's created havoc within the situation and also our own physical bodies. I won't go into the detail of that, but there's a lot of evidence for what I'm saying. And so now, until we change our habits of disrespecting wildlife, animal life, and disrespecting the boundaries of the countryside and the forests in which these animals live, if we continue to have disrespect for wildlife as well as the boundaries in nature that were designed to be able to maintain a certain protected area for the wildlife, if we keep destroying all of this, then definitely there's another pandemic on its way. And what's going to be the impact of that? Who knows? But certainly it'll be unhelpful for me in terms of my own future plans for whatever it is I need to do to be peaceful and be an instrument to create peace in the world. So these patterns that I carry, I need to change some of these patterns. The pattern of violence, nature, animals, that needs to shift. Violence against myself, in which I haven't understood what's going on. And so there's self-harm and self-sabotage, but also violence against the people around me, at home, at work. And maybe it's not physical violence with my hands. Maybe it's verbal violence. My tongue is so sharp that I don't give others a chance to speak, or they've spoken and I cut them down and I throw them away. Who's going to remain to help me when I need help. And so I need to change. And not just for the thought of my need for help later on, but simply because it isn't right. It is wrong for me to harm another individual. Not just not harm them physically, but not harm them through my words. Also not harm them through my eyes. You know, we have this expression, if looks could kill. I'm sure many of you have had this experience and you know what it feels like. Well, can my eyes heal rather than kill? Am I able to be in God's remembrance so that God's love is able to shine through my eyes and reach others? Yes, each one of us can do this. And so as I learn to clean up all the negativity that I carry within my imprints in my behavior, that transformation, that process of cleansing is going to be such that there's peace in my heart. I'm not doing anyone else a favor as I go through this transition. What I'm doing is understanding what I need to do for myself. And so that cleansing process of changing of, I was calling them imprints, let me call them sanskaras, the deep, deep imprints that we carry for thousands of years. Now with God's love and grace, I've understood, and I want to clear all of those out. I'll begin to feel more and more at peace with myself and others around me. Another aspect. Instead of just thinking about what I need to eliminate, can I think about what I need to fill? And if I go around to a human being asking for a little bit of tolerance power, a little bit of discernment power, a little bit of judgment power, well, I can go around with my begging bowl, and maybe a person will help me one day, next day, and the third day, and the day after that. Maybe they'll just step back and say, enough is enough. That's it. Nothing more to share with you. But if I go to the source, the one above, the one who is the bestower, and I connect with the bestower, there's no limits and no time frame, and nothing is forbidden in the sense of I can take as much as I choose from the bestower, from the one who is the parent of all. Again, no physical image, just a being of light. So when I want to meditate, I focus here and think of the inner being of light that I am, but also the same for others. They're in their own practice, but my vision of them as the brother. And our connection then is of total peace and harmony. And so let me be able to practice this also and see if in my relationships with whoever it is I'm coming across. So it's not just for one set of people or one group of people, but it's for everyone I meet. Can I see them as a soul? And am I able then to have that vision of love and respect for them? And if that is my vision, that is going to be their vision of me also. Many years ago, in 1982, I decided to change my passport. I'd lived in England since 1957, but I'd held on to my Indian passport through attachment. And for one full year in 1981, I tried to get a stamp on my passport removed from by the Indian High Commission here in Britain. because that little statement in my passport said, valid for travel to all countries except South Africa. And I tried and tried and tried and couldn't find a way to remove that. And I needed to go to South Africa. There were lots of people asking for Raj Yogis to come and share these ideas there. And I finally decided I'd have to sacrifice my Indian passport, get a British one, so that there would be no problem. And I could go. And I went to South Africa for the first time at that point, just a couple of months later. And I was anyway going to go with this skin. I didn't have another skin to change into. So I knew I was going with the brown skin. And not only was apartheid in full force, but it was also a time when there was unrest. But I knew that anyway. But the other thing that happened that I hadn't accounted for was that I somehow managed to get chickenpox. There was a person who was infected and she didn't know at the time, and so we spent time together and I caught the bug. And I'd had chickenpox as a child, so I wasn't thinking it was going to come back to me as an adult, but somehow it did. And the other person, she got off very lightly, just a few marks, and that's it. But I had it bad. Every inch of my face, my scalp, my body was covered. Very, very tough. And the 2 weeks of the infection passed, and then gradually I was hoping that the marks that were left would go. And I'd hear funny things like, well, these things never go. They'll always be with you. So I had to think about it and say, okay, that's destiny. I did what I could. But somehow I then had to come to India from London. I had to go back to India for a few weeks. And the sunshine of the place and maybe the vibrations of Madhuban, Mount Abu, but the skin cleared up to a great extent. But still, there were marks that not as bad as they had been, but they were still there. And now I was off to South Africa. I didn't have trouble with the immigration. I come out and the sisters who are our friends are there to meet us, and I could sense the shock that this person felt looking at my face. She's my friend. I've known her for many years here in England. Now she was South African, so she'd now gone back home. And then I had to remind myself, I have to be soul conscious. And in that moment of soul consciousness, the fear in her eyes dropped. I wasn't infectious, but of course, when you see somebody, you think it could be. But the fear dropped. As soon as I became soul conscious and saw her with that vision, she also was soul conscious, and it was okay. And through that whole trip of several weeks, I had to keep practicing this, especially when meeting strangers. And the only two people I knew in South Africa were these two sisters. All the rest were strangers anyway. But my consciousness of being a soul and being detached from the body meant that they began to see me as a soul and not worry or be afraid of what was happening to the physical form. And so a very practical lesson that I've never forgotten. My consciousness can impact another. And so if I have the consciousness of my true identity and my original state of being and my original nature as a soul, that's how I see them also. And there are no barriers, no boundaries, no blockages. We can communicate as human beings, one to another. And so I know that as I clear out all the different layers which are connected so deeply with the consciousness of the limited consciousness of matter, and I practice coming into the awareness of spirit and the qualities of spirit, and in that awareness of spirit, the presence of God is a very tangible experience. And so when I practice this and come into that awareness, what I share are the things that I carry within myself: peace and love and truth and happiness and purity. And so it sounds a slow process, but it works. Peace in one, and you reach out to 10 others, and 10 others reach out to 10 each. It's a huge multiplication that happens, and it started with one. And so I know for a fact that peace will come in the world. We will be able to move away from this chaotic situation of darkness that exists today. But we have to change, or rather, I have to change. And if I change, the world will change also. And when I hold this thought in my mind that I am a peaceful soul, a being of light, then that gets transmitted to others also. And yes, with the power of God's peace, with the power of peace within the soul, and the multiplication of this within the spiritual family, a worldwide family, a family that knows no boundaries. Anyone who's interested in spiritual teachings can join this family. And so even though it's a minority, the power of that minority impacts the world. Have you tried freezing water? I'm sure you have, but maybe you haven't seen it through the steps. But when you take a tray of water and you want to freeze it, what will begin to happen is a molecule here, a molecule there, and another one here, and another one there, they'll start to cluster, and they'll be attracting other molecules to themselves. And so it's a slow process to begin with. But once a certain critical mass has been reached, oh, the whole tray freezes. And so the journey of peace might appear to be a little bit slow, one at a time, from 1 to 2 to 3, and little clusters across the world coming together to create first peace in themselves. Then I know that the minority won't stay a minority, but it'll become the majority, and truly there will be peace in the world. What I suggest we do now is to have a meditation, and I'll guide you into the meditation so that you can experience what all these things are about. So I'll speak out my own thoughts as I meditate and invite you to follow those ideas and let yourself go into that experience. So it's not just following words, but it's experiencing what the words are saying. Thank you. Sitting quietly, I feel the shining light in the center of the forehead. I am a being of light. I am a being of peace. And for a few moments, I want to go deeper into that experience. The experience of peace within allows me to experience the presence of God, the source of all positive attributes, God's love surrounds me, and God's love fills me. And as I absorb the power of God's love, it is as if I found a whole treasure store, a treasure store of my own positive attributes. In the presence of the divine, and the presence of this pure love, the power of peace and the power of love radiate out into the world. And the power of peace and love calms the soul and ignites hope. And I know that a world of love and peace is to come. The power of peace touches the whole of humanity. The power of peace impacts all forms of life, and they feel sheltered and protected, and so become calm. The power of peace radiates out to all the elements of nature, and nature becomes calm. The Creator, the Supreme, creates a world of peace, and we become helpers, co-creators for this task. My thoughts return to the physical dimension, and I bring with myself the power of peace and the power of love. Om Shanti.